Every morning, you wake up inside a story you didn't fully write, but you keep playing the main character as if it's the only role you'll ever have. You slip into the costume without noticing, reciting lines you've memorized since childhood. Yet somewhere in the quiet space between your thoughts, a strange truth whispers, what if none of this is really you? It's like an actor who's played the same role for so long, they've forgotten it was a role at all. The set, the lights, the script, all feel permanent. But what happens when the curtain falls? When the applause stops? In that silence, the question becomes unavoidable. If I am not this character, then who am I? Spiritual traditions have been asking this for thousands of years. The Buddhists call it anatta, the no-self. Hermeticism hints that the persona is a mask for something much greater. Even neuroscience now suggests your self is reconstructed from memory each morning, like a film spliced together from fragments. You are more fluid than you've ever been told. So I'll ask you the most dangerous and liberating question you can ever face. Who are you when you're not wearing the mask? Because the moment you dare to look past it is the moment your real life begins. We like to imagine our identity as a stone monument, carved once, enduring forever. But in truth, it's more like a mosaic made of fragile pieces. Childhood memories, the praise we clung to, the wounds we tried to hide, the labels others gave us, the stories we told ourselves to survive. Every piece is real in the moment, yet none of it is the whole picture. Neuroscience tells us that your brain doesn't store you like a fixed file. It rebuilds you from scratch each day. Your sense of self is a reconstruction, stitched together from yesterday's fragments, colored by today's emotions. In other words, you're not a statue. You're a living script, constantly rewritten without you even noticing. Ancient wisdom knew this long before science caught up. Buddhism teaches that the self is impermanent. Taoism speaks of the flowing nature of all things. Hermeticism whispers that identity is merely a mask the soul wears while navigating the physical realm. You are the river, not the stone, and the current never stops moving. So why do we feel so trapped inside a self that isn't even solid? Because the mind clings to familiarity, even when it's a cage. And the more we believe the cage is who we are, the harder it becomes to see the door that's been open all along. Imagine a bird raised in a cage. One day the door swings open, but the bird doesn't fly. Why? Because in its mind, the bars are still there. This is how beliefs work. Invisible structures that quietly dictate what you think is possible, who you think you are, and what you dare to try. Psychologists call this confirmation bias, the tendency to only see evidence that supports what we already believe. If your inner story says you're not creative, you'll overlook every spark of inspiration. If it says you're unworthy, you'll dismiss every act of love. The prison walls aren't physical. They're stitched into your perception. Spiritual traditions warn us of the same trap. In the Hermetic view, beliefs shape the vibration you emit, which in turn attracts matching experiences. In other words, your reality doesn't just happen to you. It's filtered through the lens you refuse to question. Change the lens, and the scenery changes with it. The key is knowing beliefs aren't sacred truths. They're tools, and tools can be replaced. The moment you start swapping limiting beliefs for expansive ones, your identity begins to shift in ways that feel almost supernatural. The bird doesn't grow new wings. It simply remembers it had them all along. Think of your life as a film. Every day, you step onto the set, pick up your script, and play the same lines you've rehearsed for years. The twist. You didn't write most of those lines. They were handed to you by family, culture, religion, and the invisible expectations of society. Some roles are comforting. The dependable friend, the high achiever, the black sheep. Others are more like hand-me-down clothes that never really fit. But whether the role feels good or suffocating, the danger is the same, forgetting that you can step out of character at any time, the most fascinating part. Even the plot twists in your story often follow an old template. You get a new job, a new relationship, a new city, but the same emotional patterns sneak into the scenes. The backdrop changes, but the script doesn't. That's why real transformation isn't about swapping locations. It's about rewriting the role itself. And here's the reveal. The moment you pick up the pen and write a new identity, the whole narrative begins to bend around it. Supporting characters change, opportunities align, and the tone of your story shifts. In the next scene, we'll explore a truth even deeper, that you're not just the writer of the script. You might be the entire stage. Imagine holding a hologram in your hands. No matter how small a fragment you break off, it still contains the entire image. That's you. Every part of you carries the blueprint of the whole, and that blueprint is constantly projecting reality around you. This is the principle mystics have called the microcosm and macrocosm, the idea that your inner world is a precise reflection of the outer world. In the Hermetic tradition, they say, "As within, so without." In quantum physics, they speak of fields of information, invisible patterns that influence matter itself. Both are pointing to the same truth. Your mind is the projector. Your life is the hologram. Here's the catch. When you change the internal pattern, the beliefs, the emotions, the identity, the external projection can't help but shift. It's like altering the film reel. The scene outside changes without you having to push or force anything. This is why deep internal work feels like magic to those watching from the outside. And just when you start to glimpse the power you hold, a warning. Clinging too tightly to any one projection, any one self, is like trying to freeze a hologram in place. It loses its light. In the next act, we'll confront the most seductive trap of all, the danger of fully identifying with the role you play. When you confuse the mask with the face beneath it, you begin to guard it with your life. Every challenge feels like an attack. Every change feels like a death. And in a way, it is. The identity you cling to starts to dictate your reactions, your choices, even your sense of possibility. History is full of those who lost everything: status, possessions, even names, only to discover a strange kind of freedom on the other side. Stripped of their roles, they realized they were still here, still aware, still them. The ego sees this as annihilation. The soul sees it as rebirth. Spiritual traditions call this the death before death, the shedding of illusions before your final breath. It's the moment the cocoon cracks, not because the butterfly wants to escape, but because the old form can no longer hold what's growing inside. But here's the paradox. The very thing you fear losing is the thing keeping you small. And when you let it go, when you dare to step into the unknown without the armor of identity, you begin to experience life as it truly is. Raw, vast, and endlessly new. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to do this intentionally, over and over again, the art of shedding your skin. In nature, the snake doesn't cling to its old skin out of nostalgia. When it's time, the skin loosens, splits, and falls away. Not because the snake wants to change, but because growth makes it impossible to stay the same. Your life works in much the same way. Across ancient cultures, rites of passage mark the moments when a person would symbolically die to one identity and be reborn into another. From initiation ceremonies to pilgrimages into the wilderness, these transitions were sacred, not just changes in role, but transformations of the soul. In modern life, we rarely have such rituals, but the shedding still happens. A career ends, a relationship dissolves, an old dream loses its pull. Each time, you have a choice: cling to the tattered remains of the old skin, or step naked into the unknown. And here's the secret: you don't have to wait for life to force you into transformation. You can practice small, deliberate micro-deaths every day, letting go of outdated beliefs, shifting routines, embracing new perspectives, so that when the big changes come, you're already fluent in the language of rebirth. There is a part of you that has never changed. It was there before your first memory and will be there after your last breath. It has watched every role you've played, every victory, every heartbreak. And yet it has never been any of those things. This is the witness. In meditation traditions, it's called the observer consciousness, the still, silent awareness that sees without judgment. Hermetic teachings describe it as the point of pure being, untouched by the rise and fall of the stories you live through. You are not just the actor. You are also the stage. When you start to live from this place, the chaos of identity shifts loses its grip. Failures become plot twists. Endings become scene changes. You realize you are not here to become someone fixed, but to experience the full spectrum of being, without losing yourself in any single mask. And here's the liberation. The witness doesn't need to find a new self to feel whole. It knows you are never broken. From that vantage point, creating and dissolving identities becomes a form of art, not a desperate search for meaning. Most people inherit their identity like a hand-me-down coat, worn, outdated, and never truly theirs. But what if you could tailor a new one, stitched from your highest vision rather than old conditioning? That is the art of conscious identity creation. It starts with intention, not the kind you set once and forget, but the living kind. A daily alignment of thoughts, emotions, and actions with the version of you that you choose to be. This isn't about pretending. It's about embodying a frequency until it becomes your default state. Ancient initiates practiced this through ritual, taking on symbolic names, garments, and roles that reflected their next stage of being. Today, you can do the same through micro shifts, rewriting your self-talk, designing your environment, even choosing the people who mirror your desired self. And here's the secret most overlook. Your chosen identity is never final. It's a fluid masterpiece, meant to evolve with you. The real power isn't in locking it down, but in knowing you can step into a new one whenever the current role has taught you all it can. You are not the mask. You are the actor, the stage, the script, the light, and the audience all at once. Every identity you've worn was just a costume for a season, necessary for the story, but never the full truth of you. When you stop clinging to who you think you are, you step into the wild freedom of becoming who you choose to be. Again and again. You begin to live not as a fixed character in someone else's narrative, but as a conscious creator, unafraid to rewrite the plot. The moment you stop chasing finding yourself, you'll realize you were never lost. You were infinite all along, a shapeshifter of the soul, capable of wearing any form without being confined by it. So try on a new role. Rewrite your lines. Step into a scene you've never dared to imagine. Because the most liberating truth is this: the real you is not a person. It's the boundless awareness that can play any part.